episode 2. What's up, y'all? It's your girl KK Cutie Pie, and I'm here with
The tech guy checking in.
yes, it's your virtual homegirl. Brought to you by the Wellness Playground. Brought to you by the Check God Team Blam. We are so excited to have Roz Kara, who is our co-host, actually in front of the camera this episode. So, woo! Round of applause. Welcome, Roz, to in
Bless
front
up,
of the
bless
camera.
up, bless up,
He's
paying forward
always
family.
here, literally. But yeah, today we're excited to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So, starting out, can you give us some information on where you're from and what it's like where you're from?
I'm from a little small town in South Carolina called Kank Street, and it's the typical backwoods, small town, small mentality, crab in a bucket type of situation.
There gotta be some good parts of it. What's it like out there, the land, as far as it mountainous or
Well, it's the low country, so it's a lot of water, rivers. We got Myrtle Beach out there. Um, so the good thing about it is being in the backwoods. Our family got land. You can go on the land and just run around naked. You ain't got to worry about seeing nobody, seeing your neighbors, and it's a freedom, a sense of freedom that comes along with that. And then we can grow our own food and stuff out there, so we got a little independence and self-sufficiency type of situation going on. And it's got a lot of different terrains. You can hunt, you can go fishing, swimming, the beach, and the weather is pretty much nice all year round.
okay, that's what's up. Like, I know it had to be some good parts to North Carolina, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. I'm sorry, South Carolina. Okay, so speaking of all the different options that they have out there, as far as the environment, what did you used to involve yourself with hobby wise growing up?
Hobby wise, I used to like playing with toys as a child, Legos and action figures, G.I. Joe, He-Man, all the good stuff. I used to like guns, water guns and toy guns, stuff like that. Nerf, Super Soaker. And then, in the backwoods, we active outside. So we playing stick ball, we playing basketball, we playing tag football, street football, tackle. We got a lot of land, so we got a lot of fields out there. We can do a whole football field type of situation. Um, Swimming. We got a lot of natural parks. They got rivers and bodies of water in them, and they got pools and stuff. The beach, like I said, and we like to eat out there too. So it's a lot of food. People in the country tend to cook big meals, just from family tradition and used to having big families being out there in the country. So it's a lot of good times. And then holidays is big for us too, because there's really nothing going on throughout the year. So a lot of times during the holidays, people from out of town come in and people come back home. So it brings a lot of life to the city. So those were good times. And your family coming in from out of town to visit you. So it was always highlights, growing up.
Okay, and so South Carolina is considered the Southern United States, right? Okay, so it sounds like a lot of Southern mentality, something like that, real Black American culture, which seems deeply rooted in your experience. And so you mentioned, being involved in some of the outdoor activities and some of the natural amenities that South Carolina has to offer. How would you say the hobbies carried you into your profession now? Can you give us some insight as to what you do, and if your foundation in South Carolina has any influence on that, which I'm sure it does.
Well, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur growing up. I didn't really know what it looked like when I was growing up, and I didn't really get a lot of support from my family and stuff like that because they really want you to just go to college and get a good job or go to the military. So when you say something out the blue, out the norm, like being an entrepreneur, you really get a lot of pushback and you really don't get supported. But working with my grandfather, seeing him sell fruit and vegetables and stuff off the back of the truck, drive around to communities, and then he later added the ice cream situation to it. And just and during the wintertime, he used to grow. He used to cut trees and sell wood, and he have the wood yard or he'd deliver it. So working with my grandfather showed me a sense of entrepreneurship as far as not the money wise, but just having a product, providing a service to the community, and he showed me basically customer service, how he dealt with the people and how the people were generally happy to see him always, and he always had a good rapport with the people, and that's how I guess he kept his business sustained.
Okay, coming up around that influence, I know you did mention South Carolina kind of having some of those limiting beliefs that existed growing up with people not necessarily seeing your same vision or supporting you, the crab in a bucket mentality, which I hear a lot of people from New Orleans also reference that similar mentality, probably just in those southern smaller towns. But also seeing some inspiration, influence of, seeing the resilience of our people selling what they can, having that hustle mentality, and not just the hustle struggle mentality, but just a mentality of foundationally community, right? Us selling our products and services to make ends meet for our families. And so, even though there are natural disparities, right? Natural disparities within some of our barriers to entry in certain markets and certain industries, it's still a natural drive that always seems to show up in our families and our lineage and kind of in our present day, especially now with so much access to information, knowledge, and resources. So, with that being said, with Pay It Forward, not only do we want to put information in front of y'all, but we want to make it applicable to your life. So something that's easily transferable. So y'all heard his background, right? Y'all seen some of it in his lineage as far as entrepreneurship goes. And we sitting here talking to literally the street man of ATL, mover and shaker. Can you give us some insight into maybe a few of the principles that you think are important for people that are interested in being entrepreneurs in the financial literacy space? So, just some of the principles that you teach your clients, and from there, the services, just a little bit of insight into like the services that you will provide.
So basically, with the financial consultant, we just show people how to get an American ready financial system because our community, black people, we usually think from the mind frame of an African financial system where there's no credit and there's a lot of community around you and people help each other and stuff like that. But in this society in America, it's not like that. So I have to show our community the difference between the African financial mindset and the American financial mindset. So in the American financial mindset, you want to have savings and emergency funds. So that's two different savings. Then you want to have investments in the stock market because the first stock on the market was black people. So we still have the value as black people, but now we have to become owners. Instead of being the product on the stock market, we have to start having ownership in the stock market, the S&P 500. So once you have some savings, some investments, an emergency fund, then you're probably typically going to get credit offers because now the next step is to build your personal credit. And then from building your personal credit, having savings, having investments, then you have enough space financially and mentally and time wise to venture off into other goals, which may be a hobby that you want to turn into a business. And so the thing with translating into a business in this society is that you need to do your market research first. Don't just jump into the business blindly and expect things just to fall into place for you. It doesn't work like that. So you have to do your market research, use the research information that you gain to target the areas in the community and the people that your research told you was going to be most acceptable to your business or your brand or your service. Then once you do that, you need to use your personal credit to establish business credit. So how you do that is that you establish your business, LLC or a corporation. You'll open up the business bank account. And then if you already got personal credit, the business bank account will 9 times out of 10 give you a lot of business credit too. But if your personal credit isn't good, you can use the sales from your business as a form of credit too. So PayPal and certain payment providers, payment processor providers, once you make a certain amount of sales per month, they'll give you credit on those sales. So there's different ways to establish the business credit, but the main thing is that you don't want to spend your own money in business. You want to spend other people's money. So it's important to establish some type of credit or to do some type of crowdfunding or to write some grants to get either government funded from the grants, get the public funded from the crowdfunding or the donations, and then set up the professional income from the banks. You know.
Okay. So, as you all heard, again, we're building on the foundations that our forefathers built, right? Because, like you said, from your grandfather starting with selling his products and his services to an extent, not only just understanding the basic mechanics of that, but systematically looking at our finances, especially in the entrepreneurship mind frame. So, as y'all heard, again, Rise offers consulting services for us to have conversations, open-ended conversations about where you are, what your goals are, and how to achieve those goals, right, with tangible steps forward in that. And so, again, just kind of to retouch on what he said, making sure that you're in a good financial standing yourself, but also looking at this thing holistically and understanding that to build wealth, it doesn't just take working hard every single day, saving every little penny. Is looking at this thing from a holistic perspective. First, knowing that you are worthy of not just participating in these systems, but in excelling in these systems, right? And creating systems of our own eventually, but understanding, from a foundational viewpoint, how to approach financial systems that currently exist and shape our society. So, yeah, y'all, where can they find you for more information on the services that you provide?
The financial consultant, you can find me at checkguideconsult.com. And then I also have a marketing company, which once you establish your business credit and you get into the business space, then you have to know how to approach your audience. So I have the marketing company that's blandpromocode.com. So the difference between advertising and marketing is advertising is just putting your product or service in front of everybody. Marketing is putting your product or service in front of only the people that you know have interest in your product or service. So now you generate your own market that you market to. So that's what marketing is all about. So how most businesses do it is that they provide an offer, a special, and when you sign up, you give your email or your cell phone number to sign up for the special offer. So once you opt into this offer, that's letting the business know that you have interest in my product or service because you gave me your email address or your cell phone number to get some more information or to get a sample of whatever the offer was. So now you're in my market, you're in my database. So I'm not going to try to sell just to anybody who never heard of me before. I'm going to sell to these people that I know have an interest that already opted in and gave me that information. And then also it's 8 times easier to resell an existing customer than it is to sell a new customer. So now even though I got your information you already purchased from me, I can still use that information to remarket to you at a later date to get you to purchase with me again. So this is how you build longevity with your business by building a market for your brand and your service. So after you establish your business and you got your funding and your finances correct as far as your personal and business credit wise, then you need to build your market so that you have a consistent database that you can market to, and that's how you keep your business alive.
Okay, so making sure that again your personal finances are in order, getting clear on what that vision is that you do have for your business. So whether a hobby has led you, to your decision to be an entrepreneur, or whether it's something that you're good at or something that you really feel like is needed, which is also another key in marketing and just entrepreneurship in general, is solving problems, right? Providing stuff that we actually need and we actually use. And I would like to look at it through a communal sense and stuff that actually will benefit us, right? So, also with that, it seems like the wait, hold on, I need to say. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, okay. So it seems like at the center of marketing also is relationships. You started to kind of mention building that, market, building that network of people. Sometimes, people are introverts, but they still have the vision of being an entrepreneur. So, what do you say is some like maybe workarounds outside of the financial lens of actually building a sense of community and maintaining relationships from the funding side of things when it goes to communicating with our banks, right? And establishing relationships there to actually get the funding, but also with our target. audience and our consumers, how do we establish those type of relationships?
Well, with the financial consultant, I have a system called the 21 Steps to Financial Freedom and Generational Wealth. And the first step is charity. And charity is how you build those relationships because the law of reciprocity says if I do something for you, you are innately going to feel like you owe me something, whether I ask you for it or not. And so this is what I call favor in the check guard consultant. Is sometimes favor can be more valuable than money. Sometimes favor can get you things that money can't buy. And so charity looks like volunteering, giving some time. So if you see a friend has a business or a family member has a business, help them out. You know, like, comment, share on social media, simple stuff. Or if they need some manpower, go volunteer, give them some help. And then you can use that content to build your resume because maybe your friend has something there's something in the industry that you're not usually in or you don't have any familiarity with. But now that you volunteered, that's something that you can add to your resume. When you go out to eat or when you in a situation where it involves tipping, be a good tipper because people remember that people that tip and spend money. And then later on, when you start your business, the person that you tip could be, you know, somebody that follows you on social media. Oh, you got a business now? I remember you used to come to my job, tip all the time. I want to support you. So it's different ways that you can help out and use charity as a lens to build a community, not around your business, but just in your personal life because you have to have a support system to be successful in this reality. And a support system looks like a friend that you can call that you know got $100 you can borrow, and that you know that if they borrow $100 from you, you're gonna pay them back when you say you do, and when they borrow and you borrow $100 from them, you know you're gonna pay them back when you say you will. So a friend like that is important. Business relationships. You might have somebody that has a studio space or somebody that has a lawn care service or something to where you have charity with them, to where you have a client that may need that service. You don't have the money, but you have the relationship to where you can have the person come on your relationship and perform a service based on your relationship and wait to get paid once you establish everything with your client and get that worked out. So it's a lot of times that if you don't have a network around your business or you don't have some type of community that you're in, and it's important to establish that by charity. Or if you practice a religion, then you can use your religion. It's like if you're a Muslim or if you're a Christian, use your church or use your mosque as a means of support so you can rally around them. Any organization that you are in the community. If you volunteer with a nonprofit, then you can let the nonprofit members know about your business venture and stuff like that. So it's just even though you're not open or you're an introvert, just helping out because you don't got to talk a lot to help out. Just show up and do what's asked for you, and then just by being present, you can observe and learn things, and then people want to ask you questions, and you might hear somebody that's already speaking on something that makes it easier for you to enter into the conversation.
Right. Right. Okay. So, and it actually, what you're saying has played out in my experience with the wellness playground. So just over this past weekend, we had a garden event, right? I made that connection with the owner of the farm because I went and volunteered at one of his volunteer days that he posted online, right? Which he was recommended to me to even check out that garden because I just mentioned to that I wanted to do a garden event to someone in my network. So from word of mouth, they connected me with the farmer. I went to one of his volunteer days, casually mentioned what I do, and said I want to have an event centered around gardening to educate our community. He then says, let's partner. Easy peasy. I made a flyer, invited people to come out and join his already existing volunteer day, right? Which grabbed more people, more attention, more insight into the thing that we're trying to push, which is our ownership in our food systems. And from that, we had an amazing event where more connections was made. So that's a prime example of how relationships really can take you far. And outside of just, a lot of times it might throw you off to just feel like, well, I volunteered enough of my free time, or to actually want to get to the money, right? Which that's what we're about too. We're just saying this as a foundation, as a starting point, because these relationships actually lead to money too. Like the event just so happened to be something that, again, we wanted to promote and give access to for free because it's a volunteer space. But events can be low cost, or it can be a sense of bartering there. So as far as like services go, especially when you are trying to make connections and partnerships with existing businesses too. So it's a lot of ways to get savvy. This is just a good foundation and principle, to start from in relationships. So from there, what's the first three, let's say, additives that come to your mind when you hear relationships?
Okay, now before we get into relationship space, I just want to say with black people, the money, we think about money and that's our downfall because the money is not the goal. See, if you have money as the goal, then you're only going to be selfish and do things for me, and try to get some money. But that's going to lead you to being unsuccessful because once people see that you have that me attitude, they tend to shy away from you because they understand that you're not reciprocating what it takes to become successful. Now, in becoming successful, we need to understand the goal is the people. The people, that's why they say your network is your net worth. You see what I'm saying? So the people, the amount of people, if you have 10 millionaires that you know, then you will become the 11th millionaire. But you're not going to become the 11th millionaire if the millionaires that you know see that you're on some crab stuff or you're just trying to be around them to pariah and suck off and leech off of them. You're not going to benefit from having millionaires in your circle like that because you're just trying to get some money. You're trying to get around them and get some money. But if you have a community type of mind frame and you don't understand how to monetize things, so just for example, like she had her event, a perfect way for her to monetize that event, whether she charged people or not, was everybody that participated, she got their email address and their cell phone number. Now she has increased her database. The size of your database determines the size of your business. You see what I'm saying? So it's not how much money you make with your business because that can fluctuate. It's about how many people that you have in your database that you market to determines the size of your business. If you press this button, how many people can you reach that you know have an interest in your business? So
That's
that's
yeah.
so that's what I wanted to lay on us before we move into the
Yes, thank
relationship
you. And
space.
and just to touch on that, that's something that I'm walking away with as advice too, because um like I didn't get emails and things and I could have, and even today we talked about me building a website. So this is real, y'all. Like this is prime example of me. I have a big old vision on my heart, but I have to start somewhere. And I'm somebody who has a background in business, but I always keep the mindset it's always something for me to learn. Like I'm learning a lot as we sit here, and it's things that sometimes you can play with your ego because you feel like, okay, I know these principles, but are you applying them? Because I have to ask myself the same question. Like I can know anything, but sometimes it's good to position yourself to be reminded of the things that's important. And like Rod said, like I'm not money hungry, but I know the importance of money, and money is a byproduct of what I like to say is alignment, right? Like us acting our purposes, having the right mentality, ridding ourselves of limitations so that we can align with the timeline and the frequency of abundance, right? In all type of ways. And abundance does not look like just dollar signs. Abundance looks like holistically having those relationships, having that network, having assets, having investments, right? Having a good financial standing yourself, having knowledge of these principles and systems so that we can be well and apply it to our life, and of course pay it forward to our community, because a lot of these things, like I went to a good college, good colleges, I went to a good high school. Some of these things I know, but you don't retain everything. Honestly, when you participate in these systems, for me, it was about a degree. It wasn't always even about the education. So again, getting out of your ego, or reassuring yourself that it's always room to grow, it's always room to learn, and that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Whether you're somebody that's just curious about starting a business, somebody who just doesn't have an interest in entrepreneurship, but it's always good to know how things are functioning around you. So I just wanted to say that, and
Well,
yeah.
well, whether you choose to be an entrepreneur or not, you are an entrepreneur because you have financial obligations. You see what I'm saying? So, just for example, like if I in my business, I have to make a certain amount of money to pay my business bills. Just like if you are a person and you don't have a business, you have to make a certain amount of money to pay your living expenses. You see what I'm saying? So now, if you get into a relationship and you start a marriage is a business. You see what I'm saying? That's why when you get into a marriage, when you go to get a house, anything, now both of y'all names have to be put on the contract because now y'all are in business together. So it's not just your house, it's the business house. It's not just your car, it's the business card. When you do your taxes, both of y'all have to file your taxes together because y'all are a business now. And so um, you don't want to uh, just do things haphazardly. You want to do things in the mindset of a business, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, because you can write your taxes off as a person, even though you're not a business. You can get certain tax incentives as a person, even though you're not a business. And then a lot of things that you're doing, whether you recognize it or not, is similar to a business because you have to meet those deadlines to pay your bills every month.
Mm.
You know what I'm
We know
saying?
about that, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
And so, whether you in the mind frame of being an entrepreneur or not, when you make your money and you spend your money, you participate in some type of business relationship. You know, because you're dealing with money, you're dealing with contracts. Whether you have a lease with your apartment complex, you have a mortgage for your house, you have insurance bill for your car, you have a contract on your car payment. So all of these things are business relationships. Whether you are a business, you know, active business or not on paper,
Right.
you're still, in business activity.
Right. That's true. That's very true. All right. So going back to relationships, we kind of looked at relationships from like that entrepreneur or business lens. Like I said, what is three adjectives that come to your mind about relationships overall?
Well, the main thing about relationships is loyalty, transparency, and honesty.
Loyalty, transparency, and honesty. So I want you to give us a brief definition for what loyalty looks like in relationships to you.
Loyalty is you just have integrity. You're not going to do something that you wouldn't want nobody to do to you, and you're going to be the same person that you are in front of their face as you are behind their back.
Integrity is big. Integrity is big in relationships, whether they be platonic, whether they be romantic, whether it be your family, whether it be on a job. Um, you know, because loyalty, I think, especially in our community, can sometimes look a little self-sacrificial, right? As far as like I'm loyal to a fault, you know what I'm saying? I'm so loyal to a program, or I'm so loyal to a person that I negate my own intellect, my own intuition. I just kind of follow a roadmap of somebody else, but that's not what you define it as. You define it as integrity, right? Having your own personal will, your own personal choice, which is sovereignty in the spiritual context, but also holding true to your promises, of being a man or woman of your word, which is something that I was really taught. I remember the lesson of my mama teaching me, like the importance of, if you say you can do something, you do your best to do it. And if you can't, kind of leading into transparency, like you said, having open communication, which can be challenging. So what would you define transparency as in a relationship?
Well, before we get to transparency, I just want to speak to the loyalty to a fault, and that again goes to black people in this society having an African mind frame. So being loyal to a fault is not a fault; it's a lesson. So my grandfather always told me it's not a loss if you learn from it. So you always have to give people the benefit of the doubt, so that when you decide to move on, you can move on, and you don't have any like apprehensions or anything like that about moving on and leaving this person alone. Because we sociable people, and a lot of times we keep relationships that aren't beneficial to us. And so and if you learn from being loyal to a fault, then it's actually helping you clear your circle out, because that's one of the main things about success too, is the people that you have around you. So don't be bad about being loyal to a fault, because you're just being yourself and you're giving everybody that benefit of the doubt. But once they show you that they aren't worthy of it, you're not loyal to a fault. You just paid the price to learn that this person isn't worthy of your circle. So don't feel bad about being loyal. And then to speak towards
Transparency.
transparency is just like she said, like if it's not going how we set the plan to go, then I need to let you know. I don't want you to have me waiting to the last minute. I'm thinking everything is on the same path and it's not. You see what I'm saying? So anytime the paths change up, just let me know. And then we got to deal with it either way, because whether you let me know or not, it's still reality. You see what I'm saying? And you might think it's hard, but it's really better, because I'd rather you let me know now when we got time to make an impact on it versus at the last minute to where it's just said and done and you didn't even give me the option to try to make a change or see if I had any other um, means of reciprocity that we could overcome this challenge. So That's why transparency is important, because a lot of times things don't never work out how you plan for it to work out. But the communication is what helps everything stay consolidated and stay together as it keeps moving forward towards progress.
Yep, and that sounds a lot like keeping it real too with that honesty piece. Like, even when it is hard to show up honestly. Um, and you already touched on that and just saying to communicate things as they come up, which can be challenging, y'all. Like, some things are easier said than done, especially when you're used to operating a certain way or with a certain mentality, or even in your family line, things are swept under the rug, or people around you, sometimes people will put everything on the floor, which is another point too that I think is important. It's not always about seeking external validation. So when that comes to communication, sometimes the communication can be between you and God in prayer, or with trusted members of your community, with our elders, right? With people who you respect and hold in a high regard. That's the people that we need to be sharing our business with, in a sense, because sometimes, and I do this sometimes too, we overshare and we put, we ask for validation, we ask for advice from people who we wouldn't want to trade places with them, or the situations that they've been through, they don't even apply the lessons that they learn, or they're not necessarily walking away with lessons because of their mindset. So just making sure that in relationship, in community, in the people that we are taking advice from, we're vetting that process through our God-given ability. God is always going to be communicating with you, and we always, talking about practices that bring us closer to that, whether it be time in nature or time with self, because we are equipped with discernment. It's about how we nurture that and how we feed that and what we feed our spirits. So yeah.
And to speak towards that too, it's important that you have a solid foundation on what you stand for and what you believe in. So that way, when you do come across things that contrast your beliefs, you're able to communicate why you don't do the certain things, or why you don't feel like that's a good decision, instead of just feeling bad about it and holding it in, or maybe going with something that you know you're not aligned with. You have to speak up and be yourself, because
Mhm.
that's what it all comes down to in life. You have to be yourself, and don't allow yourself to be compromised to fit into this or to that, or you think it's going to help you get ahead, because you're not getting ahead once you compromise yourself,
Mhm.
because now you're going to be spending your time doing something and being miserable, versus if you not compromising yourself. Yeah, it may be challenging, yeah, it may be hard, but you can go to sleep at the end of the night knowing that you're still who you are as God intended for you to be.
Right. And sometimes that communication looks like altering your energy and managing your own energy and deciding what relationships you're going to continue to pour in and be a part of. Because honestly, I feel like a lot of times, in us trying to balance our relationships, we put emphasis on what the other person needs to do to change. But you can't control anybody else outside of yourself. So, like you said, it's important for us to be grounded and to have a foundation within ourselves. And that's always going to lead back to your relationship with God. If you can't figure it out in that mind of yours, pray about it and you will be guided. But you have to trust and know that and walk in assurance in that.
And that's why I would say have a foundation, because if you have a relationship with God, then that is your foundation. If you
Right.
if you're Christian, then the principles in the Bible should always come to the forefront when you're dealing with adverse situations and adverse communications and adverse relationships situations. So you should always be able to refer to a quote in the Bible that you live your life by, you stand on, and then people have to respect that, whether they believe it or not. We all have to respect each other's religion and each other's walk of life. And that's what I mean by not losing yourself.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Always knowing who you are and what you stand on, and living in that, even though sometimes life situations may seem like it's a little contrast against what you normally do.
Okay, period. So you walked us right into foundation one and respect two, right? So first, foundation wise, I want to put the definition of a relationship in front of us so that we can have something to go off of, right? We've defined relationship, but as the textbook reads, relationships are connections or associations between two or more people that involves emotional, social, or mutual interaction over time, right? I'll
Hmm.
say that one more time. It's connection or association between two or more people that involves emotional, social, or mutual interaction over time. Relationships can vary in depth, purpose, and structure. So relationships aren't always just romantic, which is usually the first thing that comes to mind, right?
Hmm.
And are shaped by communication, trust, shared experiences, and expectations. right? So even speaking of expectations, my question to you is, how do you define if someone respects you in relationships or not?
Well, respect. You can only look at respect through a lens of yourself, because how other people treat you is not based on you. It's based on how they treat everybody. You're just another number. So you can't never look at how somebody treats you and take it personally and try to internalize it like that. They just had it out for you. When you come to realize that's how they treat everybody, you just not recognizing, or it's just your turn to feel it today. So respect always starts with self-respect.
Mm.
So once you got a level of self-respect, then once you feel like that line's been crossed, then you know whether it's been crossed or it hasn't been crossed. Once you have a feeling, you always have to listen to yourself. And now that feeling, if you're not confident on it, that's where communication comes in at. And that's where you ask, oh, so are you really disrespecting me? And then they say, yeah, I'm disrespecting you. Now you know the feeling is legit. But if you say, hey, are you disrespecting me? I'm feeling disrespected. Oh, no, I wasn't trying to disrespect you, but that's why communication is important, because you can assume based on your feeling that you're being disrespected, but you can't think for the other person. So that's why communication is always important. And because imagination is worse than communication. See, if I communicate and I ask you and you tell me what it is, then that's communication. But if I don't ask you and I use my imagination, now I could turn to a whole Marvel series where you just an evil villain and you've been up all night for years plotting against me for this one day in my imagination. But the reality is that you ain't even thinking nothing like that. So communication, but you got to have self-respect and understand that once you feel like your self-respect is challenged, communicate that to make sure it's clear instead of just crashing out and acting on your feelings. Especially as men, we have to always keep our composure and not be emotional, because as men we have to be the leaders, because we are the ones that are looked at to have that composure when things go crazy. We're the ones that looked at to stay calm and use our intellect. You see what I'm saying? So that's our position as men, and we have to know that to be valuable as men. You see what I'm saying? Because even if you're not financially successful as a man, just being a man, standing on man principles, you still have value and you still bring value to a relationship. You see what I'm saying? So be a man first, keep your calm at all times, and communicate. Don't go off your feelings. Make sure, because you can't think for the other person. So see what's in their mind. Even if they lie, the vibe that they every time somebody speak, a vibe gonna come with it. So don't only just listen to what they say, feel the vibe. Because they might be disrespecting you and just not be man or woman enough to admit it to your face that they disrespect you. But you will still be able to pick up on the vibe and say, okay, if I was, if somebody told me they felt disrespected, I wouldn't give them that answer, because I don't feel like, that would make them feel like disrespected. So I feel like they just not man or woman enough to really say it. So you got to
Right,
be able to understand that too.
right, yep. And manage your energy from there. Um, is that a lesson that you had to kind of learn the hard way, as far as being able to, hold your composure? Or you always been pretty level headed with
Well, I always been pretty laid back and pretty calm, so to speak, and I'm not really a person that like conflict. So um, coming from the backwoods, I was real passive, but unfortunately, spending time in Atlanta, I became much more aggressive and more street, to where I do get an attitude and I do might get loud with somebody or something. Versus before, I would probably shy away from the situation, try to ignore it, or just do something to get over it without having to confront it. But now I'm with it. I'm ready to confront it. But being older, and then also having a background in martial arts, I understand the importance of de-escalating the situation, because my martial arts master always taught us that the true master is the one that can avoid the fight. That's where the mastery comes in the mind first, not just being able to move your body and be strong, but being able to use your mind to master and control situations without having to use your body and your strength.
that. Yes, that's really good advice, especially like you said, for anybody, but especially our youth, our young men, and our young women, because as women, we are emotional beings, and I think that it's good for us to be able to express ourselves in a healthy way. And sometimes I think for me personally, like I have been a people pleaser in my life, which means that to avoid conflict or in the hopes of my intention was good because I want everybody around me to be good. I want to be that person that shares knowledge, but in turn, sometimes I've neglected my what my intuition is telling me, what God is communicating to me in those morning moments, which then kind of makes me have a level of resentment to those around me, which is essentially self-inflicted in a sense, and it's symptoms of self-sabotage that stem from good intention. So, being able to recognize patterns within yourself and not just so easily point the finger and blame it on other people, but know the hand that we play in our own experiences, because that is how you reclaim your power, not by just saying, well, this person got me messed up. If everybody around you keep having you messed up, then maybe it's time to, okay, look within, reposition yourself. You can be a good person and still have like um behaviors that don't necessarily align with where you want to be. um
And just to speak to that, in reality, we have to recognize that it's only one experience. So basically, your experience is the only experience on the planet. You can't try to think about what somebody else is doing because essentially that other person is just you. It's just a different version of you showing you your experience from a different perspective. Because when you look at life from a scientific or even a religious perspective, it tells you that light, everything is light. So nothing is physical as we think in reality. It's all just light and it's just vibrating at a frequency that it feels physical. So when you're in a situation with somebody, it's really a personal situation. You're really going through something with yourself. The other person is just a reflection of you and what you're dealing with internally. So just like if you wake up with a bad day, you're going to have a conflict with somebody that you interact with because that's reflecting that internal conflict that you have. Just like if you wake up with a good day, you may meet somebody that's having a bad day, but the fact that you're having a good day, it doesn't affect you the same way that day. You're not vibrating on the frequency that day. So a lot of times when you're dealing with people, all the time actually, you have to deal with yourself and look at what you're dealing with internally, and then and recognize that the only thing you experiencing in the world that we call reality is just a reflection, a better expression of what you're dealing with internally. So you can't take it personal, and you can't, like you said, give away your power. Because when you start blaming it on the outside, when you start blaming it on the reflection, you lose your power. Because if you on the bank of the river and you're looking at your reflection and you blaming your life on the reflection, and you disadvantaging the opportunity and the power that you have being on the riverbank and able to walk away from this reflection and make a change. The reflection can only do what the reflection is. So you can't blame other people because they just reflecting you. So internally, you're still blaming yourself. So all problems that you have in life is based on yourself. And I know that can get kind of sketchy when you deal with stuff like slavery and rape and child abuse with the Epstein files coming out. But you have to recognize that you see that there wasn't no black people on the Epstein files because that's for their survival. Their power comes from darkness and death. So that's why they need blood because they're dealing from a realm that's not physical. So they need the blood to remain physical in this realm. With black people, that's not so. That's not our culture. So having a godly culture, you recognize that the reason that we're experiencing these things is still our fault because we left our godly culture, just like in the Bible tells you, we left our godly culture and we start following man. And everything that we experiencing from that point on, even the Bible tells you that we were supposed to go into 400 years of being enslaved because we left away from our original culture. And then we allowed people to steal our culture. Because here it is, black, you have to be black to be a Jew from the tribe of Judah. It has to be in your DNA, in your blood. And you can't be a Jew if you Caucasoid. But the fact that black people don't even honor ourselves as Jews no more, as a tribe of Judah no more. Here we allowed another entity to come in and claim our natural birthright. You see what I'm saying? And so this is what the whole thing is. We're not being who we truly are, which is creating conflicts in reality, which are self-induced. You see what I'm saying? Because we black people, we are the leaders of the planet. We are the oldest people on the planet. But we fell off from our leadership role because we are no longer leaders. We have become followers.
So, what's something in our black community that you think is normalized that should not be? Because you talk like in a a historical sense, and us kind of again comparing ourselves to the white standard with relationships and business and different things, even in our personal communications. Um, what do you think, kind of to not even sum this up because it's a lot of different moving
No,
parts,
we can sum it
but
up.
what's one or one
I'm
main
gonna tell
thing
you
that you
several.
feel like?
I'm gonna tell you several.
Okay.
So the thing is that you have to look at your nature. So as black people, we have a godly nature. You see what I'm saying? Because we were made in His image. So we have to just simplify ourselves because we are people from the land, natural, like a squirrel, like a goose, like a crocodile. We can incorporate our city and our government right into the natural landscape of the land. It's just like you see in Africa and you see in other indigenous cultures. The whole thing about uh, a society and a city and everything, that's based on the protection of the Caucasoid because they can't survive in the natural elements. The animals and plant life and things like that attack them to where we naturally coincide with, like the Avatar, the movie Avatar. It shows you the difference between the indigenous people who are the planet is made for, and then the alien species who's not from that planet, and how they have to do so many things to fit in on the planet. They have to mix their genetics with ours and create different genetic uh, physical bodies so that their spirit can operate through it. It's the same thing that's going on in this reality.
I did just watch the Avatar, the new one. I didn't finish it, but you're right about it. I think it does kind of speak to like that narrative. Um, and again, y'all, like here, whether you're somebody who this is their first time hearing this type of information, or if you like deep into it, it can, if it is your first time, it can be like, okay, I was never taught that, or sound like strange, or like that, like conspiracy. But at the end of the day, no matter what way it's interpreted, certain things are what they are as far as our evolution. We talking about Pangea, us all in some way, shape, or form coming from Africa in a sense, but historically, like how our different settlements and migrations affect our current cultures and our current genetics, honestly.
And
So
then also, when you look at the family structure, God told us that He gave us a seed. Our seed is His promise to us that we will always live forever by planting the seed. And we are family based, family oriented. They just think family is some niggas you kick it with and you just got the same blood. But when you look at all successful corporations, they're families. Macy's, that's a family's name. Nordstrom's, that's a family's name. Walmart, from the Waltons, that's a family name. So the family is how you're supposed to build your business. So a lot of the stuff that we had in place in our community that made sure our community was successful and strive for excellence in the future, we've lost that by adopting the uh, culture of the Caucasoid, which is resulting in the same way that their families are dysfunctional, that our families are dysfunctional. But what we don't understand is that their dysfunction is based on their survival. So that's why they have to harvest blood from the hospitals from black people in order for them to survive. That's why they have to eat each other's blood. That's why they have to eat the children of their own species because the young blood helps their old bodies stay alive. And then they put the children through satanic ritual abuse to add adrenaline to the blood, which enhances the youthful effect when they kill the children and eat the children with the adrenalized blood in them, and that helps them stay youthful longer. And so you see that in this society, just like in ancient times, the successful people had made pacts with the devil or with the jinn, and that's how they were able to achieve success. And this is all coming out in the Epstein files that you see all of these people that are athletes, entertainers, and uh, polit- politicians and things like that. They've all entered into these deals and these covenants with the devil, and that's how they were able to achieve this power of government and success, and have us feeling like they're quote unquote elite when we're the black people are the only elite people on the planet because our genetics are second to none. And even in the state that we're not even expressing our genetics fully as black people because with the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the smartphone, and all of this stuff has really degraded us as a human being to where we were naturally telepathic. We were naturally strong. We naturally had great memories where we could memorize whole books and whole histories and legacies that we passed down orally from generation to generation. We've lost that ability. We were navigators of the oceans. We were
Mm-hmm.
the charters of the stars. We
Mm-hmm.
were the highest mathematicians. We were the greatest builders. But by adopting the culture of the Caucasoid, we've lost all of these things. And now we aren't the leaders of those things anymore. Now we have other people that, again, taking our titles and taking our positions because we have been negligent.
Whew, okay. That was a lot. That was a lot of information and context around maybe how we've arrived to the more unsavory practices and mindsets that we've adapted in regards to relationships. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think that the conversation always comes up between generations of like, comparison. I am of the Gen X, I believe. And it's the fact that a lot of things that you described, I agree with. How over time, we have gotten away from a lot of our instinctual practices as well as ancestral practices. At the same time, I am open-minded and open to evolution, right? So I know that things don't look the same as they have in the past as far as the structure of our society and our mindsets around some of the systems that have also evolved to current day mindsets. And so things like our even just like our intake of information, right? So like you said, how things were orally passed down, and our openness to our practices and instinctual things, and now how sometimes information is put in front of us and we just run with it and are easily susceptible to some of the programming that exists. Yeah, it's just interesting to kind of hear your take on that evolution and how it came about, historically and just from your interpretation of the information that
Well,
you
that's
think.
really a devolution versus an evolution, by definition.
Well, okay, I don't know the definition of evolution, but I know evolution in the sense that I'm saying in that in as far as um us changing and adapting to the time. So things that
Well,
are
see, we're not changing and adapting for our benefit. See, the evolution would be to evolve it to a better state than you are previously. So that's why it's devolution because
okay.
now we're in a state that's worse than we were in our inception and our origin.
I believe that. I think there are some parts of it that have grown, and even in that de-evolution, right? How we are in a phase of us reclaiming our power, right? Through even means of like the wellness playground or you pouring back into your community. So that's something else that I want to highlight too is some things that we do have right, considering the historical context of everything, considering like all the things that we've done wrong, that even our ancestors have done wrong too, because it's not again about a battle between the generations, because that's a lot of times what is flipped to being like, well, back in my day, we was doing this right. Things have evolved. I was thinking about this in a context of being a woman, right? Like we see effects in households and how it has been an attack on the black family structure overall, and we've seen how women have opportunities that our ancestors didn't necessarily have, right? As far as like how we advance in our careers, how much we're able to make in a household. A lot of women are the breadwinners of their relationships, and so these have effects on our familiar
Well,
structures,
to
but
speak on that,
also,
we have to realize that all of this was by design. So the key thing that you left out was Section 8 and welfare.
well,
When
that's the attack I'm talking about.
So when the Section 8 and welfare came in, you couldn't have a man or a family to receive those benefits. So our sisters basically sold us out and had more faith in the government than they did in the black man. And so that results in a lot of single parent homes, which is why our values haven't been consistent from generation to generation. Because if you have a single parent home, or if you're not raising a child in the community or a village, they don't know what happened in the previous generation because that single parent doesn't have time to sit down and school them on how things was back in the day because they're too busy trying to live their life, live their best life, or just maintain and pay the bills and make sure that, because a lot of times, even though they're on Section 8, it's still a struggle because they have so many children and so many mouths to feed, and then the children need things that's expensive, like $200 J's, because they don't want to get picked on at school. And if you got 7 children that need $200 J's, just when they got picked on school, even though your rent is $18, 7 times 200 is $1,400. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's just the shoes. I ain't talking about feeding them, backpacks, school supplies. So even though the sisters have, um, not all of us, not all the sisters, but a lot of the sisters have determined that the government is a better provider than the black man, still resulted in living a life of struggle. So that's another thing that we have to look at too, is that, and then not to put it all on the sisters, because a lot of the brothers wasn't taking care of their children, which allowed society to put a system in there to take our responsibility that we weren't upholding as men. And it goes again to where once we fall from our greatness, it's a force, it's a entity that's ready to take our place, ready to assume everything, all our God given power and talent. As soon as we neglect it, it's a force that's ready to assume it. And so that's why we have to stand firm on who we are as a people and reestablish ourselves as the leaders of the planet, as the mothers and fathers of civilization. You're not supposed to be following nobody on the planet. The whole planet is supposed to be following us, following our way of life, and looking towards us for advice as far as leadership, community, family, government, and social norms.
Okay. Interesting take. I felt myself naturally getting defensive of our sisters, and in conversations like this, I like to be open minded because it gives me perspective. At the same time, I think two things could be true at once. Like, just with a lot of this information, it's just interesting to hear, and have these open ended conversations, and it's important for us too, so that we can understand how to move forward. Because at the end of the day, understanding our past is very important, but it's not for everything to be a battle on us being on the same exact page of how we've gotten to where we are. That's not the important part. Let's find a common goal and move forward. You know what I'm saying? Not to take away from, us coming to sound conclusions about our past, because it's important to understand, patterns and behaviors that have led us here, but also like channeling that energy into something productive and not being defensive. So this is a prime example of like me actually actively, resisting the urge to just, well, because it's true to it. Like, we all have a hand in playing with, how things went in the past, as far as like our ancestors, our behaviors, mindsets, that we still have that push certain narratives forward. So yeah, it's good to show up empty sometimes and be filled
And
and have your cup
again,
filled.
all the problems that we face in life are self-induced, and that's why you can't blame nobody, because if you blame somebody, you're giving your power away, saying that your life is going the way it is because of somebody else. So you have no control of your life no more. But once you say no, I made a decision. That's why my life went that direction. Now you still have the power to make another decision to still go to where you want your life to go and end up at. So don't blame. That's how you lose your power and give your power away. Understand that it's only one reality. It's your reality. Everybody outside is just a reflection of you. It's still you. It's nothing different. You see what I'm saying? And so until you resolve your internal conflict, you won't be able to manifest and maneuver through life to get to where you're striving to go, because you're still internally battling, but you're blaming it on the outside. So you can't even solve the problem because you're looking in the wrong direction.
Right. Yep. It all starts with you. I'm always reminded of that. So I guess that's a good point for us to kind of stop on. We've unpacked a lot here, and kind of got into your mind, understanding some of your background, who you are, what it is that you stand for, some of your beliefs around kind of the mentality that we've adopted around relationships, and some good goalposts for us to put, out there to move forward, some things for us to hold ourselves to on a personal level, so that we can attract the things that we want and align with the timeline that we want to align with, so that not only we're, blessed and poured into, but also for our community to pay it forward and to edify God, to edify source, the source of where we get the energy from, and yeah, the momentum to keep going to fulfill our purpose. So with that, that was a lot of information. again, financially speaking, if you want to learn more, book a consultation, or just understand where to source resources surrounding financial literacy, financial health, and wellness, and building wealth, essentially, you can follow Rise at the Check God and also Team Blam. What's the socials for Blam?
It's Team Blam on Instagram, and well, you just go to our website, and from the website you can get everything. Our social media, our YouTube, everything is on the website. So just go to the website, click on the social icons, and then you can follow us on social media.
Yes. And that website is pitforward.com, right?
Yeah.
pitforward.com. Y'all don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow us for more information, follow us for more content.
Leave that
Again,
cash app.
put your cash app in the caption. I'm sorry, in the comment section for your chance to win $20. Y'all haven't been really participating. We see our viewers going up. Y'all might want to drop them cash apps for a chance to win $20
We're trying to pay
between
it
now and our
forward.
next
We're trying to bless y'all, man.
between now and our next filming. So yes, thank y'all for tuning into this conversation. We hope that we kind of opened your brain. Hope you learned something and that you are inclined to come back for more. Until next time, bye
Check
y'all.
out, checking out.